Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Welcome back, everyone. All right, I'll tell you what. I'm a little jacked up right now. Little jacked up. I'm going to start the episode here. I had something different that I wanted to start with, but I just got this right before I started recording, and I got this post from Josiah Richwine. So, Josiah, thank you for sending me this. This is the kind of thing that I've spoken about before, and it really grinds my gears. And I have to tell you, the people that are pushing this are the problem. These people are not our friends. These people are not here to help us. They are not taking in information the way that we are. We are on a different dimension than they are. They are interested in making money, and that is it. And I'm specifically talking about anybody who pushes the wellness company's quote-unquote medical emergency kit. Again, you've heard me speak about this at length. Of course, Amazing Polly has covered this as well. Lots of people have brought this up. Anybody pushing the bird flu is a liar. They're either a liar, a fool, a combination of both, whatever it may be. These are not good people. And I don't care who they are. I really don't. All the promo code stuff and whatever else, all that stuff for the wellness company medical kit. These people are disgusting. They're only in it for the money. So let's review. There is no bird flu. And right now, you have these people on the so-called right-leaning alternative conservative we're in the truth movement bullshit. All these people are pushing the bird flu scare right now in a way that they never have before. What makes them any different than the people who pushed fake COVID 4 years ago? It doesn't make them any different. Again, this drives me up the flippin' wall. It really does. So, Josiah sent me this. It looks like Instagram, if I'm not mistaken, from DC Drano. This Rogan O'Handley guy. I don't like him at all. Not a fan. And again, his post simply says the wellness company medical emergency kit includes amoxicillin, azithromycin, doxycycline, metronidazole, if I'm saying that right, and ivermectin. You don't need any of that. Because there's no bird flu. There was no COVID. There was no pandemic. Period. It's that simple. I'm sorry you were lied to. I'm sorry you thought that there was COVID. I'm sorry you thought that there was a pandemic. And I'm sorry that you think that there's bird flu. But you've been lied to again. And again, these people who claim to be on the so-called right wing of things and in the truth movement, these people are lying to you. Because pay attention again to who they talk to and who they always cross-promote. It's the dead giveaway. I mean, it's the red flag that's stuck in everybody's back with this wellness company nonsense. Of all of those drugs that they push, which, by the way, their entire so-called wellness package, okay, is actually not that many tablets. It really isn't. And it's remarkably expensive. It's hundreds and hundreds of dollars. But of all of those drugs, the only one that's worth ever having on hand is ivermectin, simply because it can be used for many things. Again, it's a gut cleanser as well. But even with ivermectin aside, okay, even with that aside, there is a natural cure for almost every single thing that ails us. Again, I don't make money on any of this. If anybody's been over to my website, you'll know that. It's beyond clear. There's no promo code Sean, promo code American Education FM. There's none of that. All I do is find information that's valid and put it on my website for free for anybody to see. There's earthclinic.com. If a person ends up ill for some reason, first of all, you need to examine what you're doing to yourself. That's the first thing. And then second of all, look at the most natural remedies to the thing that ails you. earthclinic.com has a great deal of things on there. Again, that's the first link on my website under the Medical Documents tab. See, it's not natural remedies that these people want you to be focused on. The wellness company, quote unquote. What a load of shit. I mean, these people are the absolute worst. They're the worst. If they had a brain in their skull and they weren't interested in shekels, all they would do is point you to more natural substances that exist. Again, teas, clean water, maybe bromelain, which of course is a natural supplement that can be acquired over the counter for nothing. There are a million things, but there's no bird flu because there's no flu. There's only poison. If anybody's ill, it's because you're eating bad food. If anybody's ill, it's because you're injecting yourself with things. If you're getting ill, maybe you're around people who are injecting themselves with poison and eating poison, and their entire system is out of whack. Thereby, of course, through electromagnetism, not coughing and sneezing, but just electromagnetism, it throws your system off a little bit. There's no better time right now, certainly in the month of May and as we come up to June here, to get outside and just stare at the sun and just ground yourself in the grass and lie in the grass and take naps in the grass. I love taking naps in the grass. It's arguably one of the best things on planet Earth, in particular when your dog is lying next to you. It's fantastic. But take naps in the grass. Let the breeze go over you. I mean, this is the best way to remain remarkably healthy. Yes, exercise, eating right, that should go without saying. But there's endless other habits that individuals can engage in instead of throwing money to get some little zip up, rubber case from the wellness company to have these drugs on hand just in case something happens to me. And the comment here that's listed below this screenshot from DC Drano's Instagram page, you had 23,703 people who like the comment. And it says, quote, DC Drano, I don't think bird flu is going to be like COVID, but I'm prepping for whatever they throw at us. Hit the link in bio to grab your emergency medical kit, which includes those drugs I listed and more. Use code Drano for 10% off. These people are so stupid. They're so stupid. And I'm telling you, we are not graduating at, I'm rubbing my skull here, sorry. We're not graduating at a fast rate right now. We aren't. Have these people learned nothing? Have these 23,703 people who liked this comment and this ad for the wellness company learned absolutely nothing? You don't think bird flu's going to be like COVID? Joke's on you, dummy. There's no such thing as either of those things. They don't exist. They don't exist. I'm telling you. It just grinds on me. It just angers me so much. I had some really, I don't know. I'm sorry. It's just one of these things. It bothers me to no end. Just no end. So, I'll tell you what. I'll continue by saying this. Look out this weekend for my next Substack article. It's going to be about these weight loss shots that exist. And it's not just Ozempic. It's like 5 of them at least. And why people are taking them and what these shots are doing to people. Now, very quickly, I'm going to tell you this quick story. Agent over there at chemtrails.substack.com is the Michigan business friend of mine who I've been referencing. And she sent me a text message the other day that described how one of her friends, one of her insurance friends, has been taking those weight loss shots. And the very same day that they took one of those weight loss shots in the doctor's office, they went home and immediately started vomiting profusely and became remarkably sick. That's called poisoning because the shots are poison. And as I'll certainly say in the actual Substack article here, coming up this weekend, you'll never find health at the end of a needle. It doesn't work that way. So she goes to the emergency room after receiving, I believe, Ozempic or one of those other shots, vomiting profusely, gets into the emergency room, and the doctor quite literally tells them, the reason you're vomiting is because you probably have the flu. Did you get your flu shot? Because if you had your flu shot, you wouldn't be feeling sick right now. They actually told her that. And then they actually diagnosed her with viral gastroenteritis. And I got a screenshot of the form that they gave her. This is incredible. This is just bizarre. I'm telling you, these hospitals, we know that they're death camps. We're fully aware of this. But honestly, no one is thinking. Nobody. And of course, if you go in there and you act like you know the answer because, well, let's face it, we have the answer, they'll look at you and say, well, are you a medical doctor? And even if you were, they would deny what you're saying. But here's the information, the patient education form they gave them. It says viral gastroenteritis discharge instructions, adult, about this topic. The stomach flu is also known as viral gastroenteritis, and it is an infection caused by a virus. Bullshit. It says you may feel sick to your stomach or throw up. The medical terms for this are nausea and vomiting. You may also have loose stools, belly pain, or cramping. You may not be hungry, and it says some people have a fever or muscle aches. Viral gastroenteritis is easy to spread from person to person. No, it isn't. None of this is real. None of this. I can't believe this. I mean, I can, but my God. And then they have a printout of what looks like a black woman, and it says signs of dehydration. Sunken eyes, cracked lips, dry skin, dark-colored urine or very little urine, lack of energy, dry mouth, feeling faint or passing out. No, those are the symptoms of being poisoned. That's what that means, because they were poisoned. They took a shot and then the same day started violently vomiting. It's not because of food poisoning, it's not because they didn't get the flu shot, and it's not because they have the quote-unquote flu. It's because they were just poisoned with a weight loss shot. These weight loss shots, ladies and gentlemen, cause cancer. And as I'm going to get into in detail in the Substack article, which I haven't written yet, but I will. I promise I'll have it up sometime this weekend, certainly by Sunday. What happens is the reason that these shots cause cancer is because the shots physically cause, from a physiological standpoint, the sloughing off of oxygenated cells. Now, you need that. That matters in your body. You need oxygenated cells. But when those cells start to die and are killed from the poison that's in those shots, those deoxygenated cells are what? They become cancer. And they become cancer, quote unquote, because they have no oxygen in them anymore. Therefore, they're toxic, which means your body has to get rid of them somehow. But you lose so much weight so quickly with these weight loss shots, assuming that, of course, you change your habits and 1,000 other things. I, of course, am not recommending these shots under any circumstance. But the reason that cancers are so prevalent among these individuals who are taking these shots is because those toxic cells have to go someplace. And if they congregate in the weakest part of your body that has the least amount of oxygen, well, then cancer will develop. Those deoxygenated toxic cells that your body would normally get rid of through the natural means like sweating, via exercise and a proper diet and 1,000 other things, that if an individual did it naturally, they would get rid of them naturally. But when you unnaturally kill healthy cells in your body, and even further damage toxic cells in your body. Your body can't get rid of those cells fast enough. That's essentially, if you think about it, that's kind of a backdoor way of what the COVID shots do in their own right. It causes your body to not get rid of toxic cells fast enough. That's why you see turbo cancers everywhere, quote unquote. It's the same concept. Again, it's just two heads of the same snake. It's still the same pharmaceutical industry in tricking individuals into believing that a spell or a potion, pharmakia, is going to be your answer. That instead of changing your habits and eliminating things from your diet and intermittent fasting and exercising, even mild exercise with weights, picking up heavy things, putting heavy things down. I mean, there's endless forms of exercise, but this is how individuals can lose weight in a healthy way. And of course, everybody blames genes and genetics and, well, I'm this shape and I'm that shape and, I'm this way because of my parents or my grandparents were built like this and blah, blah, blah. It all that has more to do with bone structure than anything else. But if an individual, again, is interested in losing weight, it's habitual. It's all habitual. And when an individual looks for a quick fix, well, you're going to get a quick result and everything that unfortunately comes with it, which is a quick consequence. That happens too. These shots are killing people. Those weight loss shots are killing people, and it's not being widely reported. So sorry for the rambling there, but man, right out of the gate, again, don't buy this bird flu lie. Please don't. It doesn't make anybody any different from pushing a bird flu to pushing the COVID lie. Anybody pushing either one of those things, or so-called disease X, like Dr. McCullough certainly pushes, along with the Gateway Pundit and endless other people, that the bird flu is disease X, so we all need to watch out and make sure and stock up on your wellness kit and blah, blah, blah. Stop it. Just stop it. These grifters are everywhere, and they just have to keep grifting because they don't know any better. They all think that they're a part of some cool club, some cool kids club. They're at the the cool kids table in high school or something. It's absolutely retarded. These people are stupid. They're just in it for cash. They are not our friend, I'm telling you. The individuals, again, disassociating with the wellness company, individuals reminding people out there that they're not a part of the wellness company, all of that is a very good thing. In fact, that brings me to this. I'll just stay on the jab train here and keep bringing this up before I get into geopolitical and education things. There's this too. This was from Bailiwick News. Again, this is Catherine Watt's Substack. She put out an article here very recently titled Top 10 U.S. Federal Laws Congress Should Repeal to End Worldwide Vaccination, Mutilation, and Killing Programs. It says the World Health Organization meeting and medical freedom, quote-unquote, summits are a sideshow. So she openly says, again, when it comes to these freedom summits and these health summits, don't ever give money to those people. They're all the enemy. But she lists off these 10 repealable American federal laws enacted by U.S. Congress and U.S. presidents between 1944 and the present day to embed worldwide vaccination, mutilation, and killing programs in U.S. domestic federal law and through international pharmaceutical military weapons product sales, contracts, and international mutual recognition agreements pertaining to pharmaceutical non-regulation to embed the same programs in the national governance and laws of other countries. I'm going to read through this list. This is rather important. Here we go. Number 1, 42 U.S.C. 262 through 261-1, the regulation of biological products, enhanced control of dangerous biological agents and toxins, etc., licensing of biological product manufacturing, including vaccines, and this was enacted by the U.S. Congress in 1944. Number 2, 42 U.S.C. 264 through 272, quarantine and inspection, regulations to control communicable diseases, foreign domestic inspection and quarantine provisions, enacted by U.S. Congress in 1944. Now, before I continue, you have to understand something, that this won't be repealed. Why? This won't be repealed, and these won't be repealed because they all hinge on the virology lie. And all of Congress and all politicians buy into the virology lie because the Jewish lobby has them right by the beanbag. And every single time that they step out of line, well, they get squeezed a little bit, don't they? They all have to get reminded as to who pays the bills and who funds their campaigns and so on and so on. So yes, these laws were created on the back of the virology lie, which means the only way that they ever are done away with or abolished is if the virology lie is exposed. Now, if that's the case, you talk about collapsing an entire medical system. That's why they're not touching the virology lie with a 10-foot pole. They have too much invested in it, too much death, too much money, too much so-called medicine, quote unquote, certainly the pharmaceutical industry as a whole, and too many laws. There are just too many laws here on the books. Number 3, it says, 50 U.S.C. 1511 through 1528, Chemical and Biological Warfare Program. Authorization and funding for chemical and biological weapons research and use on human targets, enacted by U.S. Congress in 1969. Number 4, 42 U.S.C. 243 through 247D-12, Public Health Service Federal-State Cooperation. See, this is where it's starting to sneak into what we saw in 2020. Federal and state cooperation, working together against us. Public health emergencies, as it's stated, vaccination tracking and distribution, liability immunity for vaccine manufacturers and users under emergency declarations. That was in 1983, enacted by U.S. Congress. Number 5, 42 U.S.C. 300 AA-1 through 300 AA-34. Vaccines. National vaccination programs, liability immunity for vaccine manufacturers and users under non-emergency conditions. Enacted by U.S. Congress in 1986. Number 6, 21 U.S.C. 360 B through 360 B-8D. General provisions relating to drugs and devices. Emergency use authorization, EUA product manufacturing distribution, medical countermeasures, etc. Enacted by U.S. Congress in 1997. It's almost like they had all this planned out in advance, isn't it? Because they did. Government wants us dead. It's in their own laws. Number 7, 42 U.S.C. 300 H through 300 H-37. National All Hazards Preparedness for Public Health Emergencies. National Planning, Coordination, Chain of Command, Execution for military and medical personnel during declared public health emergencies, etc. Enacted by U.S. Congress in 2002. Thank you, 9/11. And Patriot Act nonsense, my God. Number 8, 6 U.S.C. 104 through 106, National Biodefense Strategy, National Biodefense Strategy Implementation Plans, etc., enacted by U.S. Congress in 2016. Number 9, 21 U.S.C. 215 1B, Statutory Note Section 5559 through 5566, Population Planning and Health Programs, International Pandemic Preparedness. What year was this enacted by U.S. Congress? 2022. And number 10, 6 U.S.C. 741 through 825, Comprehensive Preparedness System, National Preparedness System enacted by U.S. Congress in 2006, and the Global Catastrophic Risk Management enacted by U.S. Congress in 2022. Unquote. she goes on and she says, for what it's worth, I'm not a member of the medical freedom movement. She certainly is not. And I believe her. Again, she's remarkably thorough in everything that she writes here. She reads right through numerous legal documents, federal and state law. I highly recommend her Substack, bailiwicknews.substack.com, if you're interested in checking it out. But my God in heaven. It's just awful, ladies and gentlemen. It's all on the books. That's the whole thing, okay? It's all on the books. U.S. government's been planning this out for a very long time. Step by step, they pass this stuff without anyone's knowledge. It all comes to a head like it has in the last 4 years. And then people start diving into the legal documents and the law and the history to see what's been planned and what's been scaffolded this entire time. And here we are. Here we are at the top of the scaffold, and everything below us is shaking. But they built it, and that's it. They put this all together. All right. Moving on, there was this. Just this past week, the NIH advisor David Marens testified in front of one of the oversight committees regarding a lot of his communications, certainly with Tony Fauci, as he calls it. Tony and I were just hanging out and emailing each other back and forth. I've got a little 6-minute clip here I want to play, and again, it's him basically talking about the way that he communicated with Tony Fauci, as he puts it, because they're chums, and how some of the language that they were using regarding backdoor communications were just jokes, that they were just joking around, that he and Peter Daszak and Anthony Fauci are all chums and they all get along, and what could possibly go wrong when these three individuals are constantly communicating with one another and apparently had no idea that their emails could be subpoenaed or FOIA'd? So anyway, with all that said, give this 6-minute clip a listen in 3, 2, 1.
On April 21, 2021, you wrote, I can either send stuff to Tony Fauci on his private email or hand it to him at work or at his house. Did you ever send information related to COVID-19 to Dr. Fauci's personal email?
I don't remember if I did. I may have, but I certainly told him some things that he asked me to tell him about the situation with Peter.
Thank you. On May 13th, 2021, you wrote that you connected a reporter to Dr. Fauci via your secret back channel. What back channel did you have for Dr. Fauci?
Well, all these terms like secret back channel and the other one you mentioned were just jokes. Just, jokes that I made in dealing with Peter because he was under death threats and was very depressed. And it was sort of the group of people who were Peter's friends were trying to cheer him up by making snarky jokes and euphemisms that were, not true. But there was no back channel. The back channel to Tony was the same one that it applies to everybody. But the back channel was a regular channel within government where if somebody wanted to talk to Tony, I would tell them, we have a regular process here. It's called ODAM, Office of Director AM Group, the inner circle. And the request to do something, it would be to talk to Tony or to give a talk or whatever, would go to this group. And they would meet in person with Tony every morning and say, we got a message that so-and-so wants to talk to you, or so-and-so wants to, something from you. And then he would decide, usually right there. I was never involved in that, at least not in recent years. I used to go to those meetings many years ago, but...
Was that the channel you're referring to?
Yes, that's the channel. It's not really a back channel, but I'm being, making snarky comments.
Dr. Moorens, are you aware that the destruction or attempted destruction of federal records carries a potential punishment of both imprisonment and a fine?
I was not aware of that, and I was not aware that anything I deleted, like emails, was a federal record, because we have federal records training periodically, and the training, that I recall we received defined a federal record in a very different way than you may be thinking of it. None of it was defined as an email.
Well, that may be something to look into, is what your training looks like when it comes to federal records, because it's far different from mine. On October 5, 2021, you wrote, Peter, I just got news that a FOIA picked up an email I sent you saying Tony commented that he was brain dead. I deleted that email, but I now learn that every email I ever got since 1998 is captured and will be turned over whether or not instantly deleted. On June 28, 2021, you wrote, Peter Daszak emailed me and Tony congratulating Tony on standing up for science. That email fell into the hands of the congressman, probably via FOIA, of someone who didn't delete it, as I did. Delete all of Peter's emails and others related to Origin. Mine was erased long ago. I verified that today, and I feel pretty sure Tony's was too. Dr. Morens, did you ever delete or attempt to delete a federal record?
No, but let me explain why it seems to be discrepant. You can't delete an email from NIH, from an NIH computer system. They're all retained and can be accessed for any purpose, including a FOIA. Now, I don't know what they normally do, whether when the FOIA is required, how far back they go or whatever. But it's my understanding that if they want to, they can go back all the way to the beginning, maybe even I came to NIH in 1998. And at that time, when we came there in 1998, we were instructed to delete emails or to move them into PST files frequently because they jammed the computer. And so I got into the habit of every morning, looking at all my emails. And when I say email, I mean NIH email. Looking at my NIH emails, and some of them can be dispensed with quickly and then just deleting them. Other ones that I would need to keep or thought I might keep would be moved into a PST file so that my inbox wouldn't crash. And I must say, based on my understanding of what a federal record was, I truly don't think I have ever seen a federal record in 26 years of being at NIH. And if I'm wrong about that, I apologize because it just never dawned on me. I've done work at the National Archives. And at one point, about 10 or 15 years ago, I contacted a records person lady and said, I have some documents that could be something the National Archives would want. And she said, nah, I don't think so. You can destroy it. And I didn't destroy it. I still have it.
There's a difference between the federal archives and your day-to-day work as a federal employee, employed by the American people. You seem to know a lot about FOIA. You investigated FOIA. You talked to the people that implement FOIA. And you need to know, if you didn't, that it is a federal offense if you even attempt to delete something that would be considered for the federal record.
I can see lots of sides of this. First of all, I don't trust him. Anybody who's friends with Anthony Fauci certainly has an agenda, and they certainly have the same agenda, working for the same group and the same people, and of course being employees of the federal government. Freeing up space on your computer by deleting emails is not a new thing. Of course, there's certainly policies and procedures that are in place when you are a federal employee, or even a state government employee, so to speak. Certainly at the federal level. But either way, if you're friends with Anthony Fauci, then you're working for the same people. You're shaking the same hands. You're nodding your head at the exact same time. He was in on this. And arguably one of the most, I think, egregious acts beyond, of course, just pushing terrible drugs on people and killing copious amounts of people. Certainly for a very long time. Perhaps Anthony Fauci longer than this guy. Is the simple fact that they were receiving emails from very concerned professionals who knew what was going on specifically regarding the COVID shots themselves, and of course hospital policy. And in many cases, they were not responding to those emails. I've even brought some of those emails up on this show many years back. I want to say in the spring, early summer of 2021. Same kind of thing. Again, numerous people emailing Tony Fauci, Anthony Fauci, and openly saying, hey, look, there are HIV traces and spike proteins within these shots. We're examining these shots and this does not look good. Are you aware of this? What are you doing, kind of thing? and then there would be no reply. And again, these emails would be sent from numerous people to them as a small group, as he calls it, the inner circle. And then, of course, they just wouldn't reply back. Now, they knew what they were doing. Again, not replying to very serious concerns implies that there's a problem and that they know that there's a problem. So, of course, what did they do? Instead of fixing the problem, they decided to defend science, quote unquote, by just doubling down and tripling down on the bets that they already made that weren't paying out. And then they just kept pushing more and more lies. And of course, that got more and more people killed. And they ran to the media, told more lies, the media backed their play, so on and so on. And frankly, his testimony is just a setup to what's going to happen on June 3rd, which is where Tony Fauci himself is going to be testifying, and that should be interesting also. I expect it to be more of a packed room, as opposed to any of his colleagues' testimony, certainly, but either way, it should be interesting. So I'll certainly bring those audio clips to you, and I plan on watching his testimony in full, and it'll probably last, I don't know, at least 3 hours if I had to venture to guess, but there you have it. Okay. Now, as far as the WHO treaty, there's no word as of yet as to what they have or have not decided. Not that it matters one way or another. It's unfortunate law that still exists on United States law books, and certainly federal law, but there are some states that are stepping up here. This was from myhometowntoday.com from this past Wednesday, where it's titled Republican Governors Sign Letter Opposing WHO Treaty. It says the Republican governors of 24 states, including Georgia and South Carolina, penned a letter to President Joe Biden opposing the World Health Organization's proposed pandemic agreement, quote unquote, which they say could undermine national sovereignty and states' rights. Well, it's not a could, it does. And of course, as we know, the WHO thinks of themselves as an advisory body to the global authority in public health. But of course, that can't possibly exist. But even so, here's the problem. Whether governors sign a letter saying that they're not going to agree with whatever comes down the line here in the future or not, this is going to boil down to private companies, private practices, hospital conglomerates, and whatever they want to do. It ultimately boils down to them. And then, of course, you're going to see numerous legal battles again in the future. Because again, putting everything aside for a minute, nothing's really changed in the hospital system. You still have to be masked if you're not jabbed, and if you're jabbed, you don't have to wear the masks, but if you're jabbed, you're sick with a biological weapon and or dead. So, it's lose-lose no matter which way you slice it. They still have their policy in place. Their policy, of course, is violating endless laws that already exist, which proves further that we live in a lawless nation, which is actually the next thing I'm going to read here in just a minute, but I wanted to list the actual states themselves that apparently signed this letter for whatever it's worth, and then, of course, pay attention to which states did not. Ohio didn't sign it. Old Governor Child Trafficking DeWine himself didn't sign any of this, Mr. COVID vaccine lotto himself. But here we go. We have the governors of Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, Mississippi, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Those are the ones that signed it. Everyone else has not, which means they're leaving the door wide open. And they do not care. So again, I'll keep an eye on that and see if anything comes up here on any of the chat boards or any of the outlets in the future, but who knows? Again, it's a behind closed doors kind of agreement. And as I've said already, it's already on the law books. It's already associated with Health and Human Services. It's already a part of Department of Homeland Security, the FDA. They have this already in their law books, that if something goes down, so they say, that if they deem it to be important for the American people to know, which of course means that it's probably a giant lie, then they can implement just about whatever they want to implement. And we have to assume that they're going to try. So in that same wavelength of thought, this was a particular post. It looks like it was from Telegram, and this is from Pepe Deluxe. Just wanted to read this just because it's kind of a nice summary of the current state of affairs regarding our government. But it said the following, quote, "People don't realize that, yes, you are in a police state. Elections are selections. Courts are corrupted. Congress is controlled by corruption and selection. DAs are bought through dark money donors. Big tech has been compiling information on everyone. At some point, if your government wants to intimidate or harass or unlawfully take your guns or abuse your rights, it's happening. And you just need to go to YouTube and see examples all over. FDA against the Amish, EPA shutting down farms, ATF taking people's guns, FBI harassing social media posts. Is the government poisoning our food and water? Is our government mandating forced vaccination? Is our government spraying the sky with chemtrails? Is our government starting wars, Maui fires, smart cities? Wake up. Does our government run guns? Is our government funding biolabs, laundering tax money, traffic children? Is our government invading our borders with illegals to replace us because we are now aware of their crimes and corruption? Yes, we are currently in a police state. The list is longer. I hope people are getting the picture and realize why they are frantically trying to take down Trump," unquote. It's not just him they're trying to take down, of course. It's us too on a day in and day out basis. All this stuff about Trump being in the way of us, well, yeah, that's kind of true, except they just come after us all of the time anyway. They come after American citizens constantly, whether Trump's there or not. So there you have it. Let's kind of keep that in mind, I think, going forward, because, yeah, we're already at war, have been for quite some time, and it's not going away. Okay, now there's this. And this actually just happened, geopolitically speaking now. This happened right at the end of me recording the last episode, and I thought, oh, the timing. Isn't this interesting? So this is from a congressman by the name of Guy Reichenthal. There we go. He and Max Miller, Jewish, out of Ohio, have introduced H.R. 8445, which, quote, would extend the benefits of the Service Members Civil Relief Act, or SCRA, and Uniformed Service Employment and Re-Employment Rights Act, the USERRA, to American citizens serving in the Israeli Defense Forces. This is not good. So if you're an American citizen who has fought for Israel, you are allotted the exact same rights as anyone who has actually fought in the American military. Again, if you need any more proof that we are owned by Zionists, Jews, and the Jewish lobby, and certainly Israel, this should be your proof right here. It says, quote, over 20,000 American citizens are currently defending Israel from Hamas terrorists, so he says, risking their lives for the betterment of our ally. Said Reichenthal, quote, this legislation will ensure we do everything possible to support these heroes who are standing with Israel, fighting for freedom and combating terrorism in the Middle East. The irony. It says, as your closest ally in the Middle East continues to defend itself against terror, many brave Americans have decided to lend a hand, said Miller. Quote, I'm proud of this legislation extends important protections to those Americans who choose to risk their lives in the fight against terror, unquote. The SCRA provides members on active duty status with financial management safeguards such as rental agreements, security deposits, evictions, installment contracts, credit card interest rates, mortgages, civil judicial proceedings, and income tax payments, among others. It says the USERRA prohibits employment discrimination based on an individual's prior service in the uniformed services, current service in the uniformed services, or intent to join the uniformed services, unquote. This is disgusting. This is treachery. These are traitors. These are individuals not working on behalf of Americans, let alone current veterans or homeless veterans. They're more concerned with anybody who takes up arms against Hamas for Israel and happens to be an American. They're basically giving more rights to CIA agents who might be over there killing God knows how many people for fun, and then again leaving homeless veterans on the streets here in the United States with absolutely nothing. It's beyond disgusting. These people are gross. They're doing whatever they can to circle the wagons for Israel, and they're doing whatever they can to please their controllers. And again, there should be a law against that. 100%. You cannot have dual loyalty, so to speak. You can't take multiple oaths, and you certainly can't be an American citizen fighting for a foreign country and then receive American benefits. So, yeah, that continues, which is awful. But again, it's more proof. It should just be more proof to people. Certainly that anyone not bringing this up and mentioning this on their conservative programs like Real America's Voice or anybody else, that if they don't bring this up as being a massive problem, and it doesn't matter if they think that it's for the interests of America or it's for the defense of America to defend our quote-unquote greatest ally. That's completely ridiculous. It's completely misguided. All they're doing is bending the knee and kissing the ass of the people who control them. That's all that they're doing. And they're just showing and proving, even to the casual observer, hopefully, that they are owned, that an entire government and country is owned. Again, as that Pepe Deluxe post certainly states, I mean, that's the problem. He doesn't call out the real enemy in that post and who's actually pulling the strings and funding these operations, but we know who it is. We know what's going on. So there you have it. Okay. Some good news, oddly enough, there is this. This comes from ArmstrongEconomics.com. It says Ohio prohibits migrants from voting. This should be a no-brainer, but apparently it requires an entire article. It says the following here: the federal government of the United States has been compromised. Oh, it certainly has. And we know who's compromised it. It says it is now up to the states to defend our rights to free elections and implement laws to prohibit non-citizens from having any say in our elected leaders. Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose has purged all non-citizens from voter rolls and is coming under harsh scrutiny from the left. It says, based on the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, the state found 137 people who appeared twice on voter rolls, which signaled that they were not U.S. citizens. Oh, I'm sure it was more than 137 people. It says, separate from federal law, the state of Ohio requires voters to clarify their citizenship status with motor vehicles. LaRose believes some registrants may have made a, quote, honest mistake, but noted that the state must help them get that cleared up before an accidental registration becomes an illegal vote that could result in a felony conviction or even deportation. Oh, let's just let them illegally vote anyway. Because remember, if they think that they're allowed to vote because they think they're a citizen, then apparently it's legal. So the rumor goes. It says you heard it correctly. Illegally voting in an election in Ohio could cost you the freedom to illegally reside in the United States. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. It says, quote, these individuals will receive at least 2 written notices from the Secretary of State's office asking them to confirm their citizenship status or cancel their registration. Failure to respond to these notices will result in removal of the registration from the voter rolls by the county boards of elections, LaRose's office told Fox News Digital in a statement. LaRose is asking the Biden administration to help by providing them with access to federal migrant records from various sources, but noted previously that liberal leaders have been reluctant to comply. Shocking. As I explained in an earlier post, House Democrats have been pushing unanimously to allow illegals to vote in U.S. elections. Americans are being overshadowed by their government, who does not want them to choose their elected officials. This entire expensive, dangerous, open border policy has been a direct result of dirty politicians attempting to interfere in our elections and prop up the dollar. Now, what dirty politician wants to prop up the dollar? I think we know. Okay, there was also this from Frank LaRose. He's been busy. He, of course, the Secretary of State for the state of Ohio. And this is rather suspicious. And of course, I've brought this up on the show, I want to say months ago. This whole fiasco about apparently Joe Biden potentially, if not permanently, not being on the Ohio ballot in November as a presidential candidate. Because apparently they didn't get the paperwork in time. And they don't want to rewrite the law to allow him to be on or push back the deadline or whatever it may be. So the question remains, why? And as I have said on Gab, does this just mean that the Democrats were fat, lazy, and stupid? Or does this mean that there's something else at play here? So let's theorize a little. Let me read his memo here. I know I'm doing a lot of reading in this episode, my apologies, but let me read his memo here because I think this is interesting. Because as you've heard me say in the past, I firmly believe they're going to pull Joe Biden off of the ticket, and then they're just going to place in whoever they want to place in. And the prevailing theory on that, of course, is that they're going to do that after a Democrat convention, because again, let's face it, no one else is running for the Democrat ticket. So again, whether Joe Biden is on the ticket in Ohio in November or not is, I would say, almost irrelevant based on this theory. If the DNC has it in their policy, and they do, to pull Joe Biden and just exit stage left with a giant hook on his neck and just pull him off and then place in anybody they want without a vote, which they can do, and they're probably going to do that, then they can have anybody that they want on the ballot at any time, certainly after that moment. So again, a Democrat National Committee may occur. Different states will say, congratulations, Joe Biden's the nominee. The balloons will fall. He'll lose his mind, shit his pants, do the whole thing. And then at the end of the day, they'll go, well, we have our reservations about Joe, and we think that he's not fit, and that's going to be that, whether it's 25th Amendment or not. They might even kill him. Who knows? It's certainly not going to be me that does it, but someone else may even do that, or they might just say that he's remarkably sick and now we have to replace him. So they'll probably hinge all of that on a bit of a sympathy vote also, and think that a sympathy vote is somehow going to help them. Lots of angles on this, but let me read his memo here. This was dated May 21st. And it was addressed to the chairwoman Liz Walters of the Ohio Democratic Party in Columbus, Ohio. Dear Chairman Walters, regarding the Democratic, as they say, party candidate certification under Ohio Revised Code 3505.10. Dear Chairman Walters, I write to inform you that my office still has not received communication on behalf of the Ohio Democratic Party or the Democratic National Committee that clarifies the party's intent to comply with Ohio's ballot access deadline. As previously explained, the Ohio Revised Code requires a political party selecting its presidential and vice presidential candidates by nominating convention to, quote, certify the names of those candidates to the Secretary of State on or before the 19th day before the day of the general election, unquote. It says the conflict between the August 7th, 2024 certification deadline and the date of your party's nominating convention is well established. In my correspondence to you, dated April 5th of 2024, I offered two possible remedies: a change in the date by which your party formally nominates a presidential candidate, or action by the Ohio General Assembly to create an exception to the statutory requirement. Today, the Speaker of the Ohio House told members of the media there would not be a legislative solution, and there is, quote, just not the will to do that from the legislature, unquote. He went on and said, with a legislative remedy taken off the table, I must remind you that the deadline is fast approaching and the matter remains unresolved. Unless your party plans to comply with the statutory deadline, I am duty-bound to instruct boards of elections to begin preparing ballots that do not include the Democratic Party's nominee for President and Vice President of the United States. 3 more paragraphs, he wrapped up here and said, "Let me be clear that this is not an action I wish to take, as I believe it is in the best interest of Ohio voters to have a choice between at least the 2 major party candidates for the nation's highest political office. Unfortunately, however, the Ohio House of Representatives has refused to act, and the Democratic Party has so far offered no legally acceptable remedy. As the Ohio Attorney General's office has advised my office, the Democratic Party's office, to submit a provisional certification by the statutory deadline, quote, simply is not provided for by law, quote, unquote." And then it says, quote, "There is no provision in Ohio's election code that could permit the secretary to provide the Democratic Party with an alternative process," unquote, to the one required in the statute. It says further, the General Assembly has clearly stated that, quote, "no public official shall cause an election to be conducted other than in the time, place, and manner prescribed by the revised code," unquote. "The integrity of our elections begins with our citizenry having full faith and confidence that their chief election officer will always follow the law. As such, my office seeks a remedy that both upholds the law and serves in the best interest of the voters of our state. I trust that you will act quickly to resolve this conflict so we can move forward with clarity in preparing for the November general election. Thank you for your prompt attention to this matter. Yours in service, Frank LaRose, Ohio Secretary of State." Okay. Unquote. Again, in my head, the only inaction that the Democrats are taking in the state of Ohio is because someone has been told that Joe Biden won't be the nominee. He may be the nominee by the time August rolls around, but by the time September's here, he won't be. That's the only reason that they're not moving on this. Again, I'm theorizing here, but why not? That's a scenario that's out there. It'll be interesting to see if this happens, but this is another piece of that puzzle. It's another dot in that line that's being connected, I think. So, yeah, one way or another, it'll be interesting. Okay, so there's that. And of course, that was on numerous websites. It wasn't just that one. Let me see. I found this interesting. Here's the last geopolitical thing. This was from the Daily Mail. Again, more evil propaganda, and it's right up there with the wellness company. But I find this interesting because it's government themselves that are actually doing this. And it's the UK government, actually, that's providing this particular warning. So here's what it says. This particular article was titled "Supermarkets Urge Against Panic Buying as Government Launches Preppers Website," quote unquote, warning families to start a national crisis emergency kit of tinned food, batteries, and bottled water. It says supermarkets today urged against public buying as the government launched a preppers website and blah, 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 in case of a crisis. It says Oliver Dowden will today advise people to make contingency plans for dealing with potential emergencies to help build national resilience, quote unquote, to ease pressure on emergency services. The Deputy Prime Minister wants to encourage families to stock up with enough food and water to provide for 3 days in the event of an emergency like a flood. Seems highly suspicious, does it not? The last time that I recall government making the suggestion, although our government has done it in recent months as well, but the only time before this that I recall was after 9/11, when the Bush administration was saying everybody should have some kind of a go bag, you should have cash on hand, you should have tinfoil and wrap yourself in tinfoil if a nuclear bomb goes off so that you cook yourself faster. I mean, it was just a giant list of really stupid stuff that, again, some people adhered to and some people didn't. But it certainly seems like it's stoking the panic flames among certainly the people who are dead asleep as to what's really going on. Although, having food on hand and having water on hand and cash on hand and guns, ammo, and lights and the whole thing, everybody should have that already. That should just be commonplace. But when government openly comes out and says it, that's interesting. Just makes you shake your head and say, what do you have planned? What do you got going on there? All right, 2 education stories and then kind of a local observation to round out this episode here and round out this week. This was from readlion.com back on May 22nd here, just a couple days ago, and it says, Michigan school district erases terms such as boys and girls in the name of inclusivity, asks staff not to talk about it to the media. Again, typical fashion in American K12 school to make a ridiculous motion to look at their staff members and say, we're going to do something stupid, now don't tell the media about it and don't talk about it. It says a Michigan public school district administrator instructed staff in an email not to use gendered terms such as boy or girl when referring to students. Kara Davis, the executive director of teaching and learning at Saline Area Schools, sent the email last week after reportedly receiving feedback, quote unquote, that teachers and staff were using gendered language to address students. This is how brainwashed these people are. You can't say it isn't brainwashing, and you can't say it's not generational brainwashing. It certainly is. It says, I'm confident that all volunteers want to create the best experience possible and would never intentionally exclude students. I also recognize that there's a historical accuracy to this practice. However, I want to ensure that we aren't replicating harmful practices on students of today to model what happened historically. These people are disgusting. Davis advised staff to instead use terms such as students, children, or visitors. And then, of course, they went on and they started to say that based on particular lessons that are taught in the classroom that have to do with separating boys and girls in order to prove a particular point, that they would do well to not do that because, of course, that just excludes certain students who are apparently brain dead and confused. These environments are flat out for the morally absent, the intellectually absent, and individuals that are just full-blown tools of government. And a Zionist government that they have absolutely no idea even exists, and they certainly would never want to even believe that. Again, the paperwork exists, it's everywhere, it's in government documents. We're going to use these environments to manipulate the adults who are in those environments, because then once we manipulate the adults, then we can manipulate everybody else. And we'll do it through blackmail, we'll do it through bribery, numerous schemes, and then they'll just go along with whatever ideology we implement. And if they don't like it, then, well, they're not a team player, and they're being insubordinate, and then we'll fire them. I'm telling you, anybody that continues to send their children to these environments has lost the plot. They just have. Now, here's the last one, and Cicely sent me this from New Mexico, and this is specifically from Edgewood, New Mexico. There's some audio to play with this, and a person listening to this would probably say, well, this isn't that big of a deal, who cares? There's actually a couple of really interesting points in this, which is one of the reasons why I'm playing this. And I want to see if you can pick up on it, because again, you talk about brainwashing not just on one side of this issue, but both sides of this issue, and then, of course, numerous questions as to what's actually going to happen with this particular elementary school. This was titled Edgewood Sues, so the city is suing the school district in hopes of saving an elementary school building that has stayed vacant and completely empty for the last 2 years. And because it's stayed empty for the last 2 years and it hasn't been used, well, that's because, of course, they don't have the students and they don't have the population there. And, of course, the entire building is essentially run down to some extent and certainly needs renovating. But again, there's more going on here to this, and I just want to dive into it a little bit after this audio. So give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
It is the oldest standing government building in the town. And those are the things you want to preserve. You don't want to just tear it down and say, well, 10, 15 years, why did we do that?
If you've passed by Edgewood Elementary, you'll notice the overgrown grass, unused playgrounds, and no trespassing signs. That's because no one has set foot in Edgewood Elementary for 2 years.
It basically boils down to the fact that here's this building that was paid for by taxpayer money, and it's sitting, not being used by anybody. That building has so much great potential to be used. The school district was totally ignoring all of it.
The building is owned by the Moriarty Edgewood School District. They want to tear it down instead of renovating it, saying it costs the same amount. Commissioner Jerry Powers argues the school is a piece of Edgewood history, so the town took legal action, suing the school district in hopes of saving the building.
The buildings were sitting there since 2022 without any maintenance. The roof is leaking and they're deteriorating. So they need to be preserved, and they're so important to our history and culture in New Mexico, according to the legislature, that we can even go to the point of asking a judge to allow us to purchase if they're not a willing purchaser, and that's what we're doing.
Mayor Ken Brennan and Powers also say they know the building can be fixed because it's something they've already done.
You've seen our town hall here. We renovated this building. These are the same vintage as those buildings to the south. It's really a waste of taxpayer money, in addition to the historic value, to knock down perfectly good buildings that can be used. And it's common in intergovernmental cooperation.
While the north building is partly used by the public with the library, Powers says the community needs more space, which could be solved if they own or lease the south building. The town tried purchasing the second building, but says the school district never answered them. The district then included both buildings in the demolition plan.
I was flabbergasted. I says, this building here, there's nothing wrong with it, and it's being utilized constantly. Personally, I think that maybe that was sort of like a dig at us.
I reached out to the Moriarty Edgewood School District. They weren't able to set a time for us to meet. I'll keep you posted if they respond. Julie, Tessa, back to you.
All right, Monica, thanks for breaking that down.
Again, to the casual observer, they would say, okay, this doesn't matter, who cares? And I fully understand. However, there's a number of things here that are worth mentioning. First of all, you have two useless bodies of government arguing over property. So that doesn't matter. They're both brainwashed. Who cares? Again, the school isn't utilizing the school building as a school building. And the city council says, well, this is a beautiful building, it's government, and we need to keep it and we want to preserve it. Because they just love their old buildings no matter what, and they want to keep everything the way that it is, while they also have no problem destroying things that have been up for a very long time. And they use discretion, of course, and are remarkably inconsistent with their decision-making based on what comes and what goes, and so on and so on. Beyond all of that, they're not, of course, asking the question why the building has been vacant for 2 years. Now, we know why that's the case. I would also take this a step further, and this is where it becomes slightly nefarious, certainly theoretically, in my opinion. We know that schools are in the business of property ownership. They're realtors. That's basically what they are. They buy property, they sit on it, and then they try to sell it for a higher price. And if they're the ones that own the building, and they pay the taxes on the property, as a school district, or certainly the taxpayers in the area do, they probably want to sell the property. They want to demo the building and sell the property. But as we know, who right now is in the business of buying property? We know that BlackRock is. We know that state government is. We know that federal government is. And what are those entities interested in buying property for? Illegal aliens and intake centers. If they don't renovate that old school, which you've heard me bring up in the past, that taking these empty schools and even renovating them slightly to become illegal intake centers, almost regardless of the politics of the people who live there, that always needs to be a scenario that people consider with any vacant building. And there are lots of vacant buildings all over the place. Certainly schools are one of them. And you heard me say it years ago, that schools are, no doubt about it, vacant schools, going to be turned into, as they already are across the United States, illegal intake centers. So much so, of course, that in New York, they were kicking students out of school and pushing them into online home learning via the district's leadership, so to speak, to only use the school as an illegal intake center. That's happening everywhere. It's happening lots of places. So in this particular case in this town in New Mexico, which Cicely says is right basically just off of a major highway, whether or not they keep the building is almost irrelevant. Again, you can hear, I mean, one of the guys was almost in tears. He's like, oh, this is a government building. Oh, we love our government buildings. We have to keep them forever. I mean, who cares? It's a rundown, gross-looking elementary school. No offense, but it doesn't matter if it's the town's oldest building or not. Gross is gross any way you slice it, and if it's useless and vacant and filled with mold and the roof leaks and all the other things that are clearly happening, whether you renovate it or not, you're still going to end up selling it to someone. You're going to sell it to the highest bidder. Because again, they're in the property business. They want to make money off of it, and they almost don't care who it is that buys it. So someone will buy the property, and the likelihood of them using it for nefarious reasons is remarkably high. Not to mention, and no offense, it's New Mexico. Why wouldn't they? It's kind of the going thing, certainly in far left-wing states. It's kind of the thing that happens. So with that said, and with that aside, there's a local issue which I've brought up in the past, which I find to be remarkably suspicious. And again, I could be making more out of this than there is. But in the town where I live, there is a railroad track that runs right through town. It sort of heads northwest to southeast in that general direction. And on the southeast side of town, there is being built what at least the city claims is a transportation hub, quote unquote. It used to be the scene of the old high school parking lot when I was a student there, and fortunately they knocked down that entire crime scene and they left it just a vacant parking lot. But now they're taking that basically giant area, and they're turning it into, again, this transportation hub that's going to have buses there, and it's going to have bicycles, so they say, scooters, and all that other stupid stuff. They also claim that it's going to have a public bathroom, which seems highly suspicious, because why would a transportation hub have a public bathroom? Again, if you're storing buses there and you're storing things that either the city or the county owns, you would think that city and county workers would be using a bathroom that's on the inside for just them, not for the general public. Not to mention, it's next to the railroad track, which means in the future they were claiming that potentially down the line it might actually be an Amtrak stop for the Amtrak train. I sure as hell hope not, because of course that would turn this place into a more of an illegal hub than it's already becoming. With that said, I'm watching this actual building go up, and when I drove past it the other day and saw that the walls were up, my spidey senses tingled, and I immediately thought to myself, my God, that looks like an illegal intake center. And why wouldn't it be? I mean, let's examine government very quickly. Just because government says that a particular building is going to be used for one thing doesn't mean that it's going to be used for that thing. But I'm telling you, if this thing turns into any kind of an illegal intake center, even a part of the building turns into any kind of an illegal intake center, I promise you, I'm going to take video of it. I'm going to put it up on my Rumble and BitChute channel so that you can see what I'm talking about. Again, currently the building is being constructed now. The walls are up. It just, I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me. And I would encourage people, again, to look around their town and examine their town and city and where they live. And again, I've spoken about these intake centers before. Some of them are hidden. Some of them have giant fences that are built around them. The general public typically has no idea that they have intake centers for illegal aliens within their own town or city. And this is certainly something that's worth looking up and paying attention to in the future. So if your town or city has one, I suggest you find it. And if you want to take pictures of it and email it to me or send them to me, feel free and do so with some identifying factors as to where it is, what it's called, and, maybe ask around a little bit as to what's really going on. But I have a feeling that this is just going to continue to be a thing. Because again, we know the politics of the people who certainly live in the area where I live. And if you know the politics of the people where you live, well, this is not out of the ordinary. And this is pretty much par for the course. And they certainly are going to keep trying to do what they're trying to do, which has to do with bringing in illegal aliens for a variety of reasons, whether that means they get more government funding or whatever it may be, more pats on the back, and they can play humanitarian while also playing human trafficker at the exact same time. Who's to say? But either way, that's just kind of an ongoing thing that I'm paying attention to there. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what I have. Thanks for listening as always. Have a great weekend, and I will catch you on Monday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.